The sun burned high above the horizon, flooding the savannah with a searing brilliance that seemed to erase every shadow. The air shimmered with heat, the ground cracked and hard, every blade of grass brittle as glass. Across this scorched plain, a young lion staggered forward. He was not yet full grown, just a year old, but already the weight of hunger and solitude hung heavy on his shoulders. His golden fur clung too tightly to his bones, and his once proud steps had faltered into a dragging limp. He should have been with his pride, sheltered by his mother's strength and his father's roar, but fate had torn him away. Now he searched for food, for water, for something he could not yet name. But what he found that day was not prey. From the far side of a dry riverbed came the sharp sound of claws scrabbling against stone, followed by a low, guttural growl. The lion's ears perked, his tail twitched, his nose flared, searching for scent, and then he saw it. A dog, not a jackal, not a hyena, but a dog. Rough-furred, scarred from battles, ribs showing almost as sharply as the lion's. Its coat, once perhaps white, was stained with dust and streaks of blood. The dog's jaws clamped tightly around the twisted branch that pinned its hind leg to the earth. Each time he pulled, the wood bit deeper into its flesh. The lion paused. His golden eyes narrowed. Here was weakness prey delivered to him by chance. He could strike, feed, and ease the gnawing emptiness in his belly. But something stopped him. The dog's eyes. They were not the eyes of prey. They burned with fire, pain, and defiance. And yet, in that fire, the lion recognized something else, the same loneliness, the same desperate struggle against a world that seemed determined to break them both. The lion did not leap. Instead, he stepped closer. The dog's growl deepened, though its body trembled with exhaustion. It expected death, but the lion did not bare his fangs. He lowered his head instead, sniffing at the branch, at the blood, at the sharp tongue of suffering. Then, with surprising gentleness, the lion pressed his shoulder against the wood. His muscles strained. The branch creaked, shifted, and rolled aside. The dog yelped, then pulled its wounded leg free. It collapsed onto its side, chest heaving. For a long moment, the two animals simply stared at each other, predator and prey, enemies by nature. But the laws of the savannah bent beneath the weight of something greater that day. Trust. The dog lowered its head in acknowledgement, and the lion, swaying with weakness of his own, sank onto his haunches beside the stranger. From that moment, they did not part. The lion moved, and the dog limped after him. The dog halted, and the lion circled back to wait. Hunger gnawed at them both, but together they endured. When jackals skulked from the shadows, the lion's roar scattered them. When hyenas prowled too close, the dog's furious snapping turned their courage to ash. And when the nights grew cold beneath the sweep of endless stars, they lay pressed against one another, warmth shared in silence. Yet the world did not let them rest for long. One afternoon, a thunder of hoofs shook the ground. A herd of wildebeest, panicked and stampeding, tore across the plains. Dust rose in choking clouds, drowning the Sunday. The lion bolted toward safety, but the dog lagged, his injured leg slowing him. A wildebeest calf stumbled and fell directly in their path. Its cries split the air, and the herd surged past, blind to everything in their terror. The lion could have leapt aside. He could have saved himself, but instead, he turned back. He seized the calf by the scruff, dragging it clear with strength born of desperation. The dog lunged forward, snapping at heels, driving the tide of beasts to split around them. At last, the dust settled. The calf, trembling but alive, scrambled to its feet and fled. The lion collapsed, chest heaving, sides burning with effort. The dog dropped beside him, panting, muzzle streaked with blood and dust. They had saved not themselves alone, but another life. And in that act, their bond deepened. But the savannah had eyes everywhere, and not all were kind. High on the ridge, a pair of human hunters lowered their rifles, watching the unlikely companions with cruel amusement. One spat into the dirt. A lion and a dog, he muttered, worthless on their own, but together, a prize no one's seen before. His partner grinned, metal glinting in the sun as he loaded another bullet. they began to track. For days, the hunters followed, patient as shadows. The lion and dog grew restless, aware of eyes upon them, but unable to see from where. Food grew scarcer. The riverbeds dried into cracked scars across the land. The dog's wound festered, slowing him further. Yet the lion refused to leave him behind. He hunted smaller prey hares, lizards bring scraps back to share. One night, beneath the gaze of a swollen moon, the hunters struck. A trap steel jaws hidden beneath leaves. The dog yelped in agony as the teeth clamped around his leg. The lion roared, the sound rolling across the plains like thunder. He hurled himself at the hunters. Claws flashing, teeth bared, bullets cracked, dust sprayed. The hunters fell back, cursing, one clutching a bleeding arm. The lion stood over his fallen friend, chest heaving, daring them to come closer. And in that instant, the hunters hesitated, not from fear of death, but from awe. For before them stood not a beast, but a guardian. They fled. The dog's wound was grave, but the lion refused to surrender. He dragged branches, leaves, and mud, pressing them clumsily against the bleeding flesh. He licked the wound clean, lay beside the dog, and refused to move through the long, endless night. By dawn, the bleeding slowed. The dog's breathing steadied, and when his eyes finally opened, they locked on the lion's, full of pain but also of gratitude, deeper than words could ever reach. They were no longer merely companions. They were brothers. Weeks passed. The savannah shifted from drought to storm. Rain hammered the earth. Rivers swelled, and danger returned in new form. One swollen stream raged like a living beast, waters frothing white as it devoured the land. On the far bank, a herd of zebras screamed in panic. A foe had been swept away, its small body thrashing in the torrent. The lion did not hesitate. He plunged into the flood, muscles straining against the pool. The dog barked furiously from the bank, then leapt in after him despite his injured leg. Together, they fought the river. The lion seized the foe by the mane, dragging it upward. The dog swam beside them, snarling at the water as though it were an enemy he could drive away. Wave after wave crashed over them, threatening to drag them all beneath. But at last, battered and gasping, they reached the shore. The foe staggered free, bleeding in terror before fleeing back to its herd. The lion collapsed in the mud. The dog lay beside him, shivering, fur plastered to his sides. But they had done it. They had triumphed not over prey or predator, but over the savannah itself. By the time the rains passed and the land bloomed green again, the lion was no longer a cub but a young king in the making. His mane began to darken, his shoulders broadened, and at his side, always, limped the scarred dog, loyal beyond all reason. Travelers whispered of them, a lion and a dog, walking side by side, protecting not only each other, but the weak, the wounded, the lost. They became legend, a living story passed from mouth to mouth around campfires, and though they could not know it, their bond carried a message greater than themselves, that even in a world built on tooth and claw, mercy could bloom, that even enemies could stand as brothers when guided by compassion. And so they walked on, beneath the endless sky, the dog and the lion, a tale written not in blood, but in courage and in love.